James Creedon is here now with Media Watch. It's good to see you, James.
Likewise, Laura.
And now lots of people would like to see their face on the front cover of Time magazine, I think we can safely say. For Donald Trump, though, once was not enough, and he's managed to get a copy of himself on the front cover once again. How did he get that done?
I suppose Photoshop. I mean, it's unclear if somebody did it for him to honour him or if it was sort of his idea. But in any case, there is a quote-unquote fake news front cover of Time magazine hanging in apparently 4 of Donald Trump's golf courses. And some sleuthing individual discovered that the original front cover from March 2009, 1st of March 2009, featured Kate Winslet. A Time spokeswoman said that there was no edition of the magazine in any format on the date that this particular edition claimed to be that featured Donald Trump. I saw other comments online saying if you look closely, generally speaking, Time magazine, they will have somebody's face over the word time. You know the way sometimes there's an overlap, whereas Time, so actually it doesn't take a huge amount of sleuthing to determine that it's fake. Time have asked him to take it down. Now, you see that the irony of all of this is Donald Trump frequently, this is a tweet from just yesterday, he frequently refers to fake news. Now, fake news, the term didn't originate with him. It was more Donald Trump appropriated that term to turn it back on quote-unquote mainstream media. But now, of course, it's a hugely convenient moment for mainstream media to say, well, Mr. Trump, there you go. Now, The Guardian rather helpfully put together a whole other range of fake front pages, saying all sorts of elogious things about Trump or not. 84 things every winner should own. The Too Short Tie men's fashion go-to issues. Gorgeous women dating average guys. Anyway, they had a lot of fun with it. And I suppose the thing is, he's on so many front pages now that it's sort of hilarious to imagine.
Did he need to have one made up?
Apparently, at the time, he had been on the front cover of Time in 1989 just once. So maybe he did, and it sort of. But don't they say that if you sort of visualise things, that then they will come into existence?
Yeah, true. Absolutely. Don't mock it. There's some controversy over a very different style of political communication now. What's this about? That's
right. Well, since Emmanuel Macron has come into the Élysée Palace, there have been criticisms of the fact that he's really pulled back on the Élysées' traditional communications methods with journalists. Now, just
we've seen
today,
a lot less of him, haven't we?
A lot less of him. They call it the rarity of the presidential word. That's a literal translation. In other words, if you speak more rarely, you're a bit more monarchical, a bit more sort of distant and regal and whatnot. And
busy.
That's it. And there have been criticisms of, for example, Nicolas Sarkozy's communication style, François Hollande's communication style, where he wrote this tell-all book, which was across the board criticised. And Macron decided, essentially, or his communications people decided to assume a very presidential style. And now, the thing is, that involved, very, very soon after getting into power, saying that his people wanted to choose which journalists from which newsrooms followed him on a presidential trip to Mali. Now, they pedalled back on that one because there was such an outcry in the press. There was a letter signed by a whole load of media, published in several media, saying you don't get to choose which journalists follow you. But today there was the latest incident. Now the spokesperson for the government, featured here, Mr. Castagnier, said journalists should not seek to weaken the Labour minister as she proceeds to do the work of trying to implement Labour Code reform. Now, she is embroiled in what could become a scandal, or an expenses scandal, in a position that she held previously for an organisation called Business France.
Don't criticise government ministers, basically.
She's trying to, she's overseeing this Labour law reform, which actually will use presidential orders to kind of force it through somewhat. So it is a controversial reform, and I suppose it is the role of journalists to
question them, absolutely.
That. And he said, look, don't criticise her and don't seek to weaken her. And that remark has seen him criticised quite a lot.
We also learned earlier, didn't we, that Emmanuel Macron will not be giving the traditional 14th of July television interview as well. So really pulling back on
pulling back, certainly being a lot more restrained.
And just very quickly, reaction to the news that Donald Trump is coming to Paris.
That's right. Lots of people reacting to that online. Just a couple of tweets. A lot of people anticipating on the next big handshake. You have Piers Morgan in the UK saying that this is really a case of a smart move by Macron, where the UK in fact has pulled back from the presidential trip. Others saying they hope that that they think it's strange, seeing as Trump pulled out of the Paris Climate Accords, that Macron would take this decision. It seems a little bit incoherent. And others again saying, hoping that there are no longer any loose bricks on the streets of Paris, because they wouldn't like to see anyone get hurt. Indeed, there could be protests, but I'm sure security will be at a premium.
All right, James, thanks very much indeed. James Creedon there with Media Watch.